You may close your eyes now. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to figure out, nothing you need to hold together. Let the day fall away from you, gently, like a coat you no longer need to wear. The sounds of the world can fade into the background. The body can rest exactly where it is. You are safe in this moment. You are allowed to let go. I am not asking you to concentrate. I am not asking you to try. Simply listen. The way one listens to a familiar voice in the dark. Even if the words drift in and out, that is perfectly fine. What matters will be received. As you lie there, allow the muscles of your face to soften. Let the jaw loosen. Let the shoulders sink gently into the bed. The breath can slow on its own. There is nowhere you must go tonight except inward. I want you to hear this clearly, but calmly, without urgency, without strain. Nothing here is rushed. Nothing here is forced. You are not behind. You have not missed your moment. This very moment is enough. You have lived long enough to know that effort alone has never been the true answer. Struggle has never been the source of peace. And yet, something in you has always sensed that there is another way, a quieter way, a deeper way. Tonight, you are entering that way as you rest on the edge of sleep. Where thought softens and the senses grow gentle, you are at the doorway of the creative power within you. This is the moment when the mind stops arguing, when reason loosens its grip, when the deeper self becomes receptive. This is not a lecture you must follow with the mind. This is something you allow to wash over you, something to be absorbed rather than analyzed. You may listen awake, you may listen drifting, you may fall asleep and awaken again. It does not matter. The subconscious mind hears best when the conscious mind grows quiet, and that is exactly where you are now. So let yourself be here. Now, I am going to say something very simply, very softly, without drama. Let it land gently. In 1 month, you will be a millionaire, not shouted, not pushed, not exaggerated. In 1 month, you will be a millionaire. You do not need to react to that statement. You do not need to believe it yet. You do not need to argue with it. Simply allow it to be heard. The seed does not argue with the soil. It simply rests there. And life does the work. In 1 month, you will be a millionaire. Not because of effort. Not because of struggle. Not because of chance or fortune, as the world defines it. But because something within you is changing now. The outer world has always been the shadow. The inner world has always been the cause. And tonight, we begin at the cause. You may have been told that money comes from labor, from years, from connections, from luck. But those are explanations made after the fact. They are not causes. They are appearances. The cause has always been imagination. Everything that has ever appeared in your life first existed as a feeling, a belief, an assumption held within. Your home, your circumstances, your relationships, your limitations, your freedoms, all of it began inside before it ever appeared outside. The outer world does not decide. It reflects. It echoes what you have already accepted as true of yourself. And when that truth changes, the echo must change. Imagination is the cause. The world you see is the shadow. A shadow has no power of its own. It cannot resist the object that casts it. It must follow. Tonight, as you rest, you are not trying to change the shadow. You are returning to the source. You are not forcing the world to give you anything. You are allowing yourself to accept something that already exists. Because the wealth you seek is not being created. It already is. You are not making it happen. You are aligning with it. As you lie there, let these simple phrases drift through you, without effort, without repetition, without insistence. It is done, I am. Thank you. Now, you do not need to repeat them. You do not need to hold on to them. Let them pass through you like a quiet current. It is done. Not will be done. Not someday. Not after conditions change. It is done. I am. Not becoming, not hoping, not striving. I am. Thank you. Not because you are asking, but because you are receiving. Now, not tomorrow, not next year. Now, as you rest here, understand this gently. Nothing in your outer life needs to move yet. Nothing needs to change tonight in the world of form. The change that matters is already happening where it begins. And because it is happening there, it must eventually appear here. There is no hurry. There is no pressure. There is no test to pass. You are simply allowing yourself to hear what has always been true, that you are the operant power. That imagination creates reality, that what you accept as true of yourself must harden into fact. Let the body rest even more deeply now. If sleep comes, let it come. If awareness remains, let it remain softly. Either way, the work is being done. You have nothing to protect, nothing to defend, nothing to prove. Tonight you are simply listening, and listening is enough. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now, and as you continue to rest, we will move gently, naturally, into a deeper understanding of this law and how it unfolds effortlessly through you. There is nothing to fear, there is nothing to rush. Stay with me, or sleep. Both are perfect. Your life is a mirror of assumptions. I want you to feel the weight of that statement without making it heavy. Let it be simple. Let it be plain. If you look back over the years, quietly, without blame, you will see patterns. You will see certain experiences returning in different clothing. The same kinds of worries, the same kinds of disappointments, the same kinds of delays, or perhaps the same kind of relief and blessing, if you have known that too. And if you are honest with yourself, you will notice that these repetitions did not come because the world had a special opinion about you. They came because you carried an inner conviction about life, and life faithfully echoed it. The world does not originate your experience. It reflects it. It reflects what you persist in being. It reflects what you quietly accept as true when no one is listening, not even you. That is why two people can walk the same street, live under the same sky, face the same conditions, and yet one moves through life as though supported, while the other moves through life as though resisted. The difference is not the street. The difference is the state. Every state has its own world. Every assumption has its own harvest. And you have been assuming every day, every night, whether you knew it or not. You have been planting seeds in the deep soil of the subconscious simply by feeling yourself to be a certain kind of person. A person who is chosen or overlooked. A person who is secure or struggling. A person for whom money arrives easily, or a person for whom money is always difficult. These are not casual thoughts. These are identities. And identity is the command that the subconscious obeys. So when I tell you, in 1 month, you will be a millionaire, I am not offering you a hopeful phrase to repeat. I am offering you a new state to enter, a new identity to inhabit, a new assumption to live from. Now the world has trained you to look outward for causes, to say, if I meet the right person, if I have the right opportunity, if I work harder, if the timing is perfect, if the economy is kind, if fortune favors me. And so men spend their lives bargaining with shadows. They negotiate with effects. They argue with reflections. They plead with mirrors to change their image. But a mirror cannot change first. Only the one before it can change. That is why you may have worked and strained and tried, and still the outer world returned the same scene. You were polishing the mirror while wearing the same face. You were begging the shadow to move while standing in the same light. The outer world is not stubborn. It is obedient. It has been obedient all along, obedient to what you have been. This is why I say it is not luck. It is law. Luck suggests the world is capricious, unpredictable, sometimes generous, sometimes cruel. Law suggests something far more sobering and far more freeing, that what you accept inwardly must, in time, become outwardly expressed. You may have believed that money belongs to the clever, the connected, the fortunate. But if that were true, the world would be far more consistent than it appears. Yet you have seen, as I have seen, that those who struggle the most often receive the least, and those who appear to move with ease often receive abundance. This is not to praise idleness. It is to expose the error of believing that labor is the cause of riches. Consciousness is the cause, and consciousness does not care about the story the world tells. It responds to what you feel to be true of yourself. Now I want you to understand something, because if you do not, you will be tempted to fall back into the old habit, the habit of asking, how will it happen? That question, asked from the depths, is not curiosity. It is confession. It is the confession, I do not yet believe. It is the confession, I am separate from the end. It is the confession, the world must show me first, and then I will accept. But the law is reversed. You must accept first, and the world will show. The how does not belong to you. Not because you are powerless, but because the reasoning mind does not build the bridge. The subconscious does, and it builds it with a wisdom beyond your planning. It moves people you do not know. It arranges events you could not foresee. It opens doors you were not even aware existed. And it does this so naturally that when it is finished you will say, it happened as though it were the most ordinary thing. This is the strange beauty of it. The miracle arrives dressed as normality. So I tell you, do not ask how. Let that question pass like a cloud and return to the only thing that matters, the end, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the state of the one who already is. Now listen to me carefully, because here is where the listener is separated from the doer. Many will hear these words as a pleasant idea. They will nod and say, yes, that is interesting. They will admire it as one admires a beautiful painting, and then they will return to their old assumptions the moment they rise from bed. And because they did not actually enter the state, nothing changes. But you are not here to admire. You are here to test. There are always a few, always, who take a law and prove it in their own experience. Not as a theory, not as a philosophy, but as an experiment. You do not need the approval of society to do this. Society lives by appearances, and appearances have never been cause. You do not need to explain yourself to anyone. The creative act is done in secrecy. It is done in silence. It is done within. And because you are listening now, at this hour, as sleep approaches, you are already closer to the truth than many who pride themselves on knowledge. For the subconscious is literal. It takes the feeling of your inner world and makes it flesh. It does not judge you. It does not punish you. It does not reward you. It does not ask whether your assumption is sensible. It does not consult the world's odds. It simply receives and produces. If you impress upon it the feeling, I am always struggling, it will arrange your world to match that confession. It will move you into scenes where struggle seems natural. If you impress upon it the feeling, I am always supported, it will arrange your world to match that confession. It will move you into scenes where support seems natural. If you impress upon it the feeling, I am wealthy, I am provided for, I am already in possession, it will accept that too, and it will set in motion the chain of events that must make it true. This is why your inner speech is so important. Not the words you speak to others, but the words you whisper to yourself when the lights are out and the day is done. The inner conversation you carry while you wait, while you walk, while you lie down. That is the prayer that never stops. That is the decree that never ceases. And the subconscious is always listening. So I say again, your life is a mirror of assumptions. And if you do not like what the mirror shows, do not smash the mirror. Change the assumption. Stop bargaining with the world. Stop making your peace dependent on circumstances. Stop saying, if the world would just change, then I would feel secure. For that is the old slavery, waiting for the shadow to move first. Instead, do what the awakened do. Change the state now. Assume security now. Assume wealth now. Assume provision now. Not because the world has confirmed it, but because you are the one who gives the world its instructions. This is not arrogance. It is responsibility. It is the acceptance of cause. Now I know that the mind may protest. It may say, but Neville, I have debts. Neville, I have obligations. Neville, I have not seen the evidence. And I tell you gently, the evidence is always behind. The outer world is always late. It is the trailing echo of what you have been. but the moment you change what you are being, you have changed the future that must appear. There is a time lag between the inner act and the outer fact, just as there is a time lag between planting and harvest. And the impatient man, seeing no sprout after one night, digs up the seed and declares the law false. He does not realize he destroyed the very thing he planted. So we will not do that. We will plant, we will water, we will remain faithful. And now I come to the most important part for this hour, because this is a teaching designed to be heard while you sleep. Tonight you plant the seed where it grows fastest, before sleep. When you enter that drowsy interval, when the body is heavy and the mind is soft, the subconscious is open, the guard at the door relaxes, the arguments weaken, and what you feel then goes deep. It goes past the surface. It goes into the soil where it multiplies. If you were to ask me for one secret above all others, I would tell you this: what you feel as you fall asleep is the prophecy of the day you will wake into. Men fall asleep in fear and wake into fear. Men fall asleep in worry and wake into circumstances that justify worry. Men fall asleep rehearsing lack and wake into lack, and they call it life. They call it reality. They do not realize they have been writing tomorrow each night with the pen of feeling. But you will do something different. You will not use the night as an unconscious continuation of yesterday. You will use the night as the workshop of tomorrow. You will use sleep as the doorway to the state. And because this is to be heard while you sleep, I will not burden you with strain. I will not ask you to force vivid pictures or long dramas. I will guide you gently into a single feeling, a single implication, a simple acceptance that it is already done. And from that acceptance, the bridge will form. So as you continue to rest, I want you to keep this in mind, not as a rule, but as a quiet comfort. You are not required to understand the whole process tonight. You are only required to enter the end. You do not need to build the bridge will build itself. You do not need to plan the route will appear. You do not need to struggle to become. You only need to accept that you already are. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now let those words be like soft footsteps in the mind. In the next part, I will take you gently into what it truly means to live in the end, and I will begin to shape for you the exact state and the simple imaginal act that you will carry into sleep night after night, until the outer world is compelled to mirror what you have accepted within. I have spoken to men and women in small rooms and great halls, in the heart of New York, where life moves quickly and yet the human heart remains the same. I have watched people come to me with the same burdens you may carry. Now, fear of lack, anxiety about tomorrow, the feeling that life is something outside of them, something they must beg and bargain with. They came believing that the world was the power, and they were at its mercy. And I have seen, again and again, what happens when that belief is replaced by a simple, living truth, that imagination is the one and only creative power. I did not arrive at this by superstition, nor by wishful thinking. I arrived at it by experience, by testing the law, and by watching others test it. I have seen the strange obedience of life to an inner act. I have seen an assumption, held quietly and faithfully, become a fact that no man could have predicted. And I tell you this now so that you may rest. You are not listening to a fable. You are listening to a method. A law does not require your belief to function. It simply functions. You may deny the law of gravity, but if you step from a high place, the law will have its way. In the same manner, you may ignore the law of assumption, but it will still have its way, because you will still be assuming. The only question is whether you are doing it knowingly or blindly. And because you have listened this far, because you have chosen this hour, this quiet hour, there is something in you that is ready to know it and to use it. When I speak of Scripture, I do not speak of it as history in the way the world tends to read it. I speak of it as the most profound psychological drama ever written. The characters are not men who lived long ago and far away. They are states of consciousness. The stories are not mere events. They are revelations of what takes place within you. When the book says, "Be still and know that I am God," It is not telling you to sit quietly and wait for a distant deity to arrive. It is telling you to become still enough to recognize that the awareness within you, the I am, is the very God of whom the scripture speaks. And when it says, whatever you desire, believe that you have received it, and you shall, it is not offering poetry. It is giving you the precise mechanism of prayer, that the assumption of the wish fulfilled is the act that creates. I have said for years, and I say it now with the same conviction, you do not change the world by trying to change the world. You change the world by changing your concept of yourself. And when self is changed, the world cannot remain as it was, because the world is yourself pushed out. Now I want you to understand why this works at night. For this is not a small detail. It is the royal secret. During the day, the reasoning mind is loud. It protests. It argues. It weighs everything against yesterday's facts. It says, look at the evidence. It says, be practical. It says, do not be foolish. It measures your desire against your present condition. And because the present condition is the outpicturing of old assumptions, it judges the new end as impossible. But at night, as you sink towards sleep, something extraordinary happens. The senses grow dull. The body grows heavy. The mind that argues becomes quiet. The guard at the door relaxes. The subconscious becomes receptive. You see, the conscious mind is like a watchman. It stands at the gate and examines what you would impress upon the deeper self. In the bright daylight of full waking, it is quick to reject what contradicts what you already believe. It says that cannot be. It says that is not true. It says that is not for you. And it turns you away at the gate. But when you enter the state akin to sleep, that borderland where waking and sleep meet, the watchman grows drowsy. His objections fade, and what you feel then slips quietly through the gate and sinks into the depths. This is why the moments before sleep are so sacred. They are not merely the moments when the body rests. They are the moments when you give instruction to the deeper self. Most people use that moment unconsciously. They go to bed with the last feeling of the day still vibrating within them. Worry, resentment, fear, regret. They rehearse the problem one last time. They argue with life in their mind. They count what they do not have. And then they fall asleep in that state, and the subconscious receives it as a command. In the morning, they awaken into a world that faithfully mirrors what they planted. And they call it coincidence. They call it fate. They call it life being hard. They do not realize they wrote it the night before with the pen of feeling. But you will not do that. I have watched men pray for years and receive nothing, not because there was no God to hear them, but because they prayed as though God were outside them, and they begged as though they were powerless. They asked and asked and asked, and every asking was the confession, I do not have. And the subconscious, which knows only the present feeling, received that confession and continued to produce lack. Then I watched those same men, when they understood the law, cease begging and begin assuming. They stopped pleading with the world, and they turned inward. They accepted the end as done. They felt the reality of their desire as though it were already true. They did not demand the route. They did not outline the means. They simply became the one who already had. And life, which had seemed indifferent, suddenly became obedient. Doors opened. Opportunities appeared. People were moved. Money came through channels no one could have predicted. It looked like chance to those who did not know the law, but it was not chance at all. It was the natural harvest of an inner act. This is why I speak with such quiet certainty. Not because I wish to persuade you, but because I know what the law does when it is applied. Now later, when you are even more relaxed, when the words have softened you, and the mind is less inclined to argue, I will guide you into a simple imaginal act, an exact inner scene. Not something complicated, not something exhausting, but a short, vivid implication that carries the entire end within it. You will not need to hold it for long. You will only need to enter it and let it carry you to sleep. But before we do that, I want you to see something that will free you from doubt. You have been using this law all your life. Every time you fell asleep worrying, you were using it. Every time you fell asleep feeling unloved, you were using it. Every time you replayed an embarrassment, every time you rehearsed failure, every time you whispered, "It never works for me," you were using it. And the subconscious, faithful servant that it is, did exactly what you impressed upon it. So do not imagine that you are beginning something foreign tonight. You are simply turning the same power in a different direction. You are taking the instrument that has been playing the old tune, and you are teaching it a new song. This should comfort you, because it means you do not need to wonder whether you have the power. You have already proved you have the power. The only question has been the direction in which you have been using it. Now you will use it knowingly, and because you will use it knowingly, you will no longer be surprised by the results. You will not call them miracles from without. You will recognize them as echoes from within. There is a certain dignity that comes when a person understands this. They stop arguing with the world. They stop panicking at appearances. They stop being thrown about by the moods of the day. They become steadier, calmer, more certain, because they have moved from being an effect to being the cause. That is what I want for you. Not merely a sum of money, though money can free you in many ways, but a new relationship with life itself. A relationship where you know that what matters most is the state you occupy, where you realize that you do not have to wait for permission. You do not have to be chosen by the world. You choose within, and the world must follow. So as you rest there, and as your breathing grows slower, let this sink in without effort. You are not here to force your way into wealth. You are here to enter the state of wealth and allow the outer world to catch up. You are not trying to win something outside you. You are claiming something within you. And you are doing it at the perfect hour. The hour when the guard relaxes. The hour when the subconscious is open. The hour when a seed planted gently takes root deeply. You have been using this law unconsciously. Now you will use it knowingly. And because you will use it knowingly, you will begin to see your life differently. You will recognize your present circumstances not as enemies, but as echoes. You will stop fearing them, because echoes do not create, they only repeat. And the moment you change what is being spoken within, the echo must change. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now in the next portion, I will show you very simply how to stop praying as one who hopes and begin assuming as one who has. I will show you how to recognize the inner speech that has been sealing lack and how to replace it with the quiet certainty that seals abundance. And later still, when you are drifting closer to sleep, I will take you into the exact scene that implies the end is already yours, and I will let that scene carry you into rest, so that the last impression upon your subconscious is not worry, not lack, not struggle, but possession. Let me speak to you now as plainly as I can, and as tenderly as I can, because I know what it feels like to want relief and not know why it does not come. Most money prayers fail for a reason that is so simple it is almost painful when you see it. And yet, because it is hidden beneath words, beneath habit, beneath years of training, most never notice it. They pray from the posture of a beggar. Now I do not mean that they kneel on the floor or speak with loud emotion. A beggar's posture is not a position of the body. It is a position of consciousness. It is the inner attitude that says, I do not have, I am not, I am lacking. Something outside me must grant what I desire. And when you pray from that posture, you may use holy words, you may speak with sincerity, you may even weep, but all the while the subconscious hears only the feeling behind it. It hears the confession of lack. It hears the identity of the one who does not possess. And because it is faithful, it multiplies what it receives. Many do not realize this. They think prayer is measured by how often they ask, how long they plead, how desperately they hope. They believe that if they repeat a request enough times, life will finally be moved by pity. But the subconscious does not respond to pity. It responds to conviction. It does not respond to pleading. It responds to being. And so a man may pray for prosperity for years, while inwardly feeling like the one who cannot prosper, and he will remain exactly where he is, not because he is punished, not because he is unworthy, but because he has continued to occupy the state of not having. This is why I tell you that wanting is not the way. Wanting is the confession of lack. To say, I want to be wealthy, is to say, I am not wealthy. To say, I hope to be free, is to say, I am not free. To say, please give me, is to confess, it is not mine. Now hear me with gentleness. If you have been praying like that, you were not doing something wicked. You were doing what you were taught. You were doing what millions do, because the world trains people to believe that power is outside them. It trains them to believe they must earn favor, deserve blessing, qualify for abundance. It makes them feel small. And when you feel small, you pray small, even when you use grand words. So I do not say this to accuse you. I say it to free you, because once you see it, you can change it, and the change is immediate. The posture of the son, the posture of the daughter, is entirely different. It does not beg. It does not plead. It does not attempt to persuade a distant power. It simply accepts. It assumes. It claims. It says inwardly, it is done. And that is not arrogance. It is not stubbornness. It is not pretending. It is the recognition that the power you were seeking has been within you all along, and that to assume is to use it. When you assume, you are no longer asking for permission. You are exercising authority. Now perhaps you will recognize yourself in what I am about to say. Many have tried affirmations. They have repeated phrases about wealth. They have spoken of abundance. They have said, money comes to me, and I am prosperous, and I am rich. But after speaking these words, they returned immediately to the old feeling of fear. They checked the purse. They checked the bank. They worried again. They argued inwardly with the very statements they made. And then they concluded, it does not work for me. But it did work. It worked perfectly. Because what they truly impressed upon the subconscious was not the affirmation, but the contradiction. Not the words, but the feeling behind the words. Not the statement, but the state. The subconscious is no fool. It is not moved by noise. It is moved by reality. And reality to the subconscious is feeling. So if you affirm wealth while feeling poor, the feeling is the decree, and the outer world will reflect the decree. This is why I tell you not to speak like a parrot. Do not repeat words without entering the state. Words without feeling are like letters never mailed. They do not arrive where they must arrive. Now, let us go deeper into the most subtle trap of all, because it is dressed as hope, and hope seems innocent. The trap is the habit of living in tomorrow. I will be rich. I will be successful. I will be free. I will have enough. I will. And the world admires that language. It calls it ambition. It calls it perseverance. It says you are being realistic because you are not claiming you have it now. You are just saying you will have it later. But the subconscious does not live in later. The subconscious lives only in now. The subconscious hears only the present tense. So when you say, I will be wealthy, what does the subconscious truly hear? It hears, I am not wealthy. When you say, one day I will have enough, it hears, I do not have enough now. And it goes to work to make the now match the confession. This is why tomorrow never arrives, because tomorrow is always a horizon that moves as you move. You can chase it for a lifetime and never touch it. The only moment you ever live in is now. And because you live only in now, the only state that can produce anything is the state you occupy now. So do you see the tragedy? A person may spend years saying soon, 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 and never realize that the subconscious keeps hearing, not yet, not yet, not yet, and so life remains not yet. This is why I tell you that the correct language of creation is not I will be, but I am. Not as a boast, not as a performance, but as a decision. I am wealthy, I am provided for, I am already in possession. And if you will persist in that assumption until it feels natural, until it feels like the truth of you, then the outer world will have no choice but to arrange itself to match your inner speech. Now you may say, But Neville, if I say I am while my senses deny it, am I not lying? No, you are not lying. You are selecting a state. You are choosing a reality. The outer world is only the delayed echo of the old state. If you wait for the echo to change before you change the voice, you will wait forever. The voice must change first. The assumption may be false when you first take it. It may contradict your present circumstances. It may even feel uncomfortable. But if persisted in, it hardens into fact. This is not poetry. It is not optimism. It is law. This is precisely why I ask you to stop measuring yourself by appearances. Appearances are the old harvest. They will always tell you about the past. They cannot tell you about the seed you are planting now, so do not let them rule you. Now I want you to feel relief here, because the moment you understand this, you stop making it personal. You stop saying, there is something wrong with me. You stop thinking you are cursed, unlucky, or forgotten. It was not your worth, it was your state. It was the posture from which you prayed. It was the feeling you carried into the request. It was the secret confession hidden inside your hope. And because it was the state, it can be changed. Not by struggle, not by punishment, not by years. It can be changed now, in this very moment, even as you lie there, drowsy and quiet. You can move from the posture of the beggar into the posture of the one who possesses. You can move from I hope to, it is done. You can move from I will to I am. And that movement is the beginning of everything. Now I will show you the state, not as something complicated, not as something that demands hours of strain, but as something so simple, so intimate, so natural that once you touch it, you will wonder how you ever missed it. The state is not the repetition of words. The state is not the forcing of pictures. The state is an inner acceptance, an inner certainty, a quiet feeling that says, this is mine now. In the next portion, I will take you by the hand, gently, and I will begin to lead you into the feeling of the millionaire, not as a dream you hope to reach, but as a home you can enter tonight. And later still, as you drift closer to sleep, I will let that feeling become the final impression upon your subconscious, so that you fall asleep, not as one who begs, but as one who has. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now, there is a name that you speak more often than any other name. You may whisper it in the privacy of your own mind. You may speak it aloud without noticing what you have done. You may join it to the smallest complaint or the grandest hope. And yet, this name is the very foundation of your entire world. It is the name I am. When Moses asked for the name, when he stood, as it were, before the mystery of life, and said, whom shall I say has sent me? The answer did not come as some distant title. It did not come as a word carved into stone. It came as the simplest, most intimate revelation. I am that I am. And I tell you now, as you rest and drift and soften, that the name revealed there is not a name belonging to another. It is the name of the awareness within you. It is the very sense of being that is present before you add any story to it. Before you say you are tired, you are aware, you are. Before you say you are worried, you are aware, you are. Before you call yourself rich or poor, loved or unloved, successful or struggling, there is the naked awareness that simply declares, I am. That is the creative power. Not because of the letters, not because of the sound, but because I am is the feeling of being. And whatever you attach to being becomes your world. If you would understand creation, you must begin here. Because all manifestation is simply, I am wearing a garment. You have been clothing this name all your life. You have been fastening qualities to it, like cloth to a body, and the world has been obediently showing you the garments you have worn. This is not something that happens occasionally. It happens continually. Every time you say, I am worried, you have attached the divine name to worry. And worry must find ways to live in your world. Every time you say, I am unlucky, you have attached it to misfortune. And misfortune will appear with 1,000 faces to prove you right. Every time you say, I am always struggling. You have bound I am to struggle, and life will arrange itself to confirm the union. Do you see how simple it is? And do you feel, perhaps, how liberating? Because if the cause is this intimate, then the remedy is just as intimate. You do not need permission. You do not need a committee of the world to agree. You do not need to wait for conditions. You simply need to change the garment. Now, there is a reason I speak of this with such seriousness. It is because most people take the name in vain, without ever knowing what it means to take it in vain. They imagine it means a careless word spoken aloud. They imagine it is some outward offense. But to take the name in vain is to join the creative I am to the very things you do not wish to experience, and then to watch them come alive. It is not a punishment, it is a law. The subconscious does not say, you should not have said that. It does not argue. It does not judge. It simply receives the impression and produces the corresponding world. So if you have been careless with your I am, be gentle with yourself. You were not trying to harm yourself. You were simply unaware of your power. But now you are becoming aware, and awareness changes everything. As you lie there now, perhaps already drifting deeper, I want you to notice the quiet space behind the words. Notice the feeling of being. There is a stillness in you that remains even as thoughts pass. Thoughts come and go, but the awareness that says I am remains. That awareness is the root. And because it is the root, it is the only place where true change is made. Now let me show you the difference between those who remain poor, no matter what they do, and those who seem to step into wealth as though it were their natural climate. It is not the difference of intelligence. It is not the difference of age. It is not the difference of background. It is not even the difference of effort. It is the difference of identity. The poor man, inwardly, says, I am a poor man. He may say it softly. He may never confess it to another. He may even attempt to cover it with pride. But the feeling is there. It is the garment he has worn so long that it feels like skin. And the wealthy man, inwardly, says, I am wealthy. Not always in words, not always consciously, but in the deep tone of his being. He expects, he assumes, he feels supported. He moves through life as one to whom life yields. And life, being a mirror, yields. Now when I speak of being wealthy, I am not merely speaking of possessing numbers. The numbers are the shadow. The true wealth is a state. It is a feeling. It is an inner posture. And if you do not take the state, the numbers will never remain. If you do take the state, the numbers must come, because they are the natural outpicturing of that state. This is why I tell you that millionaire is not a number. It is a self-concept. You may think you want 1 million, but what you truly want is what you believe the million would give you. Relief, safety, dignity, freedom, ease, generosity, quiet confidence. You want the feeling of being unburdened. You want the sense that life is no longer a threat. So why not take the feeling first? Why not put on the garment? Now, this is the secret the world does not teach. The world says, get the money, and then you will feel safe. But the law says, feel safe, and the money, or its equivalent, must come. The world says, receive first, then relax. The law says, relax first, then receive. The law is always reversed. And because it is reversed, the person who waits for the outer to change before they change within will wait forever. They will remain trapped in a bargain with shadows. They will say, when my bank account changes, then I will believe. And their very demand is the confession that they do not believe. And because they do not believe, they cannot receive. But you will do something different. You will become the millionaire in consciousness first. Now I want you to understand the danger of careless inner speech, because inner speech is the tool by which you fasten the garment to I am. There is outer speech, the words spoken to others, and there is inner speech, the words spoken in the secrecy of your own mind. And it is the inner speech that is the true creative act, because it is spoken with feeling. Most people are careful with outer speech. They do not wish to appear weak. They do not wish to appear fearful. They do not wish to appear lacking. So they smile, they speak politely. They hold themselves together. But in the quiet chamber within, they say the most destructive things to themselves. They whisper defeat, as though it were honesty. They rehearse failure, as though it were realism. They speak lack, as though it were wisdom. And then they wonder why life continues to confirm lack. Beloved, the subconscious hears what you say within. It hears the tone behind the thought. It receives not the public performance, but the private confession. So if you would be a millionaire in 1 month, you must become watchful, not tense, not strained, but watchful, over the inner conversation. You must notice what you are fastening to I am all day long. When you say I am anxious, you are instructing life to give you anxiety's world. When you say I am behind, you are instructing life to keep you behind. When you say I am always struggling, you are instructing life to give you new reasons to struggle. And it happens so subtly that you may not even notice the connection. The event appears and you call it bad luck, but it was inner speech made visible. Now do not be frightened by this. Be comforted by it. Because if the cause is your inner speech, then your freedom is in your inner speech. You are not chained to the past. You are not chained to conditions. You are not chained to the opinions of men. You are chained only to the state you continue to inhabit, and you may leave that state at any moment. This is why I say the most important words you will ever speak are the words you join to I am. Now let us move gently into the millionaire identity. Do not try to force excitement. Excitement is not necessary. In fact, for many who listen at night, excitement would only keep the mind awake. Wealth, in its truest form, does not feel like frantic energy. It feels like calm. It feels like a deep breath you did not know you were holding finally being released. It feels like the shoulders dropping. It feels like the stomach unclenching. It feels like the mind no longer scanning for danger. It feels like walking through life with a quiet sense that you are provided for. That is the millionaire state, not the number on paper, but the inner atmosphere. So I ask you now, as you rest, as your body grows heavier, can you allow a small taste of that atmosphere? Not by pretending your circumstances are different, but by accepting that you are different, because the millionaire identity is not dependent on seeing the money first. It is dependent on wearing the state first. So let us begin with the simplest shift of all. Let the breath be the breath of one who is safe, not rushed, not shallow, but full, slow, and easy. A millionaire does not breathe like a person in danger. The body responds to the state. If you take the state, the body will begin to reflect it. So breathe as though it is already done. Now notice the mind. A mind that feels poor is always calculating, always bracing, always watching the future with fear. A mind that feels wealthy is not careless, but it is calm. It is not desperate. It does not bargain with life. It expects life to work with it. So for a moment, let the mind rest in expectancy. Not the tense expectancy of I hope it happens, but the quiet expectancy of it is already mine. And if a thought of doubt rises, do not wrestle with it. Do not argue. Simply let it pass and return to the state. Return to the garment. The state is your home. Doubt is only a visitor. Now let us speak of generosity, because generosity is one of the surest signs of the millionaire identity. And I do not mean throwing money around foolishly. I mean the inner feeling of abundance that says, there is more than enough. The poor state hoards mentally even when it tries to appear generous. It feels that giving will diminish it. The wealthy state gives from overflow. It blesses easily, even if only in spirit at first, because it knows supply is not scarce. So can you feel, just for a moment, what it would be like to live from overflow? Perhaps you imagine paying a bill without tightening inside. Perhaps you imagine buying a gift for someone you love without fear. Perhaps you imagine helping someone quietly and feeling no anxiety afterward. Do not make it complicated. Let it be small and real. This is how the state becomes natural. Now I will tell you something that may surprise you. The millionaire identity is often quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need to prove itself. It is a settled thing. And this is why people so often fail when they attempt to manifest wealth. They treat it like a performance. They strain. They force themselves to feel something dramatic. They try to whip the emotions into a frenzy. But frenzy is not faith. Frenzy is fear dressed as excitement. True faith is calm. True assumption is quiet. It is the stillness of one who knows. It is the inward nod that says, yes. So let the millionaire identity be quiet in you. Let it be like a lamp lit in a room, not like a fire set to the curtains. Now I return again to I am, because this is where the identity is anchored. When you say, I am a millionaire, do not say it as a wish. Do not say it as a demand. Say it as a description of the state you are occupying now. It may feel unfamiliar. That is all. It is only unfamiliar because you have lived so long in another state. But if you persist, the unfamiliar becomes familiar. And when it becomes familiar, it becomes your reality. Here is the principle. You cannot receive what you do not first accept. And acceptance is not a mental argument. It is a feeling of naturalness. So our work is to make the millionaire state feel natural. Now, how is naturalness achieved? It is achieved by returning to the state again and again, gently, without strain, until it no longer feels like an act. Just as a new coat feels stiff the first time you wear it, but after you wear it often enough, it becomes your own. So it is with states. You are not trying to convince the world. You are convincing yourself quietly, tenderly, repeatedly, that this is who you are now. And the world, which is only your shadow, will be forced to change its image to match the one you have accepted. Now listen to me, as one who has watched this law work in countless lives. When you truly take a state, life begins to reorganize, but it does not always reorganize with trumpets. It often reorganizes with whispers. An idea comes to you that you would not have had before. A conversation arises that opens a door. A letter arrives, a meeting takes place. A forgotten account is remembered. A friend speaks of something, and you feel a strange inward nudge. These things are not random. They are the movement of the bridge of incidents. They are the outer world's way of arranging itself to match your new state. But if you do not take the state, the bridge cannot appear, because the bridge is built from the end, not from the beginning. So stop trying to build the bridge. Accept the end. The end builds the bridge. Now I want to speak again of careless inner speech, because even after a person tastes the new state, the old habit may try to reclaim them. They may lie down at night and feel wealthy for a few moments, and then rise the next day and say inwardly, it won't happen for me. They may hear a bill and feel the old fear, and they may whisper, I never get ahead. And the subconscious, faithful servant begins to receive mixed instructions. It receives wealth at night and poverty by day. It receives abundance in one moment and fear in the next. And then the person wonders why the outer world seems delayed. My dear, it is not the law delaying. It is the state wavering. So I do not ask you to be perfect. I ask you to be faithful. And faithfulness is simply returning to the end again and again until the end becomes your home. When you catch yourself in inner speech that contradicts your desire, do not condemn yourself. Simply revise it at once. Replace it gently. If the thought rises, I cannot afford, let it be replaced with, I am always provided for. If the thought rises, this is taking too long, let it be replaced with, it is already done. If the thought rises, it works for others, but not for me, let it be replaced with, I am the one for whom it works. This is not a fight. It is a turning. It is like turning the face toward the light instead of toward the wall. Now let me introduce the new identity in the simplest, gentlest way I know. You are a millionaire now in consciousness. Not because you have counted the money in your hand, but because you have accepted the state in which the money is natural. You are a millionaire now in consciousness. And because consciousness is the only reality, the only cause, the only creative power. The outer world must eventually conform to the inner fact. This is the part the world finds difficult, because the world worships appearances. The world thinks the visible is the cause. The world thinks the bank statement is truth. The world thinks you are your circumstances, but you are not your circumstances. You are the consciousness that produces them. So if you accept yourself as a millionaire now, in consciousness, then you have changed the cause, and the effect must follow. Now I want you to feel the softness of that. Do not strain at it. Let it be a quiet knowing. You may say inwardly, I am a millionaire, and allow the body to relax as though it were true, not the excitement of gambling, not the agitation of hoping, but the calm relief of certainty. And if you can feel that, even faintly, you have begun. A faint feeling, persisted in, becomes a deep conviction. A deep conviction becomes a hardened fact. This is the law. Now some will ask, but must I not do something in the world? And I answer, you will do what is natural to the state. When the state is assumed, action arises without strain. It arises like breathing. It is not forced. It is not anxious. It is not desperate. It is the natural movement of the bridge of incidents. So do not concern yourself with trying to make something happen. Assume the state, and the necessary movements will happen through you and around you. You will be led, you will be guided, you will feel impulses, you will notice opportunities, you will meet people, you will find yourself saying yes to something you would have ignored before, but all of it will feel natural. This is why I say again and again, do not ask how. Do not demand the route. Accept the end. Now, as you lie there, let me give you a simple image, not to excite you, but to comfort you. Imagine a great mirror in a quiet room. The mirror has no power to create anything. It can only reflect what stands before it. If you frown, it frowns. If you smile, it smiles. If you lift your hand, it lifts its hand. It does not choose, it obeys. The world is that mirror, and you, the consciousness, are what stands before it. If you stand before life as the one who is struggling, life reflects struggle. If you stand before life as the one who is wealthy, life reflects wealth. So tonight and every night, you are practicing standing before the mirror as the one who already has, not with arrogance, not with shouting, but with quiet certainty. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now, in the next portion, I will take you deeper into living in the end, and I will begin shaping the simple imaginal act that implies your wealth is already a present fact. And later still, I will guide you into it so gently that you may fall asleep inside the fulfilled state, allowing the subconscious to take the impression as your instruction. Now let me take you into something that is often spoken of, but rarely understood. And because it is rarely understood, it is rarely proven. I want you first to feel the benefit before I give you the technique. Not because I am withholding, but because the mind must be drawn by desire, and desire is always a feeling. If you can taste the feeling of the end, even faintly, you will stop chasing shadows, and you will begin to move naturally toward the state that causes the world to change. So let me speak of what it feels like when money is no longer fear. It is not merely the presence of things. It is not a parade of luxury. True wealth, the wealth that sets you free, is an inner quiet. It is the absence of panic. It is the end of bracing yourself. It is the softening of the body that has been living as though life might strike at any moment. There is a kind of fatigue that comes not from work, but from worry. The mind running ahead of itself. The imagination used against you. The endless rehearsal of what if. The chest tight, the stomach unsettled. The sense that you must watch every penny, every moment, every turn. Because if you relax, something will go wrong. And then imagine the opposite. Imagine waking and not feeling that weight waiting for you. Imagine opening a letter and not tightening within. Imagine paying what must be paid without the feeling that it diminishes you. Imagine looking at your life and feeling quietly, almost without words. I am supported. That is wealth. That is the millionaire state long before it is a number. That is the inner atmosphere from which the number is born. When you truly live in wealth, you are not frantic. You are not chasing. You do not speak of money with bitterness or envy. You do not fear that another's gain is your loss. You do not live as though supply is a rare accident. You live as one who has discovered the secret spring within, and this changes everything. Because when the inner atmosphere changes, the outer world begins to yield differently. Life begins to meet you differently. People respond differently. Ideas come. Opportunities appear. The bridge forms. And what once seemed far away begins to approach with a quiet inevitability. Now I tell you this, because many are tempted to think the end is a thing, some pile of money, when the end is a state. The money is only the shadow of the state. If you chase the shadow, it slips away. If you assume the state, the shadow must follow. So now, let us move into the teaching itself. And it begins with one simple distinction that once understood will change the way you use imagination forever. You must learn to think from wealth, not of wealth. To think of wealth is to place it outside yourself. It is to regard it as something distant, something you might obtain, something that would be nice if it arrived. You can picture it. You can talk about it. You can admire it. You can even long for it. But all the while, you remain separate from it. You remain the one who does not have. Thinking of wealth is like standing outside a home and peering through the window at the warmth inside. You can see the light. You can imagine the comfort. You can feel the longing. But you are still outside. Thinking from wealth is different. It is stepping inside. It is sitting down. It is acting from the premise that it is already yours. It is wearing the state as though it were your natural clothing. Thinking from wealth changes the direction of your consciousness. It no longer moves outward to reach. It moves inward to claim. And this is the entire art of living in the end. To live in the end is not to daydream about a future. It is to occupy a present state in imagination, and to let that state become so natural that the outer world must eventually match it. Now the mind may protest and say, "But I do not see it. I do not have it. How can I live from it?" And I answer, the same way you have lived from fear without seeing the feared event, the same way you have lived from worry without holding the proof of what you worried about, the same way you have lived from discouragement before any outer thing actually struck you. You have already proven that imagination produces feeling, and feeling produces experience. You have only used it in the wrong direction. So now you will use it knowingly. You will practice living from wealth. And because this teaching is meant to be heard as you drift towards sleep, I will not give you a long, complicated mental labor. I will not ask you to build a grand drama. The subconscious does not require complexity. It requires reality. It requires a single, vivid implication that convinces you, even for a moment, that the end has been reached. That is why I always insist upon one short scene. One, not an entire movie, not a long procession of events, not the full explanation of how it happened. If you try to see everything, the mind grows tired. It wanders. It questions. It loses the feeling. And without feeling, nothing is planted. But one short scene, simple, sensory clear, can contain the entire end, just as a seed contains the entire tree in embryo. So I say to you, choose the end, and then choose the single moment that implies the end is already accomplished. If you desire to be a millionaire, do not imagine earning it over years. Do not imagine chasing it through endless effort. Do not imagine hoping. Imagine the moment after it is done, the moment after, and make it short. It could be the feel of a check in your hand, real paper, a quiet weight between your fingers, not the excitement of gambling, but the calm certainty of possession. It could be a statement, numbers printed plainly, seen in a way that carries no shock, because it is natural. It could be a voice you love, close and warm, saying something simple like, "I'm so happy for you, you did it." It could be your own inward sigh of relief as you say, "It is finished." Do you notice what I am doing? I am not asking you to imagine the means. I am asking you to imagine the end. And I want you to understand why this works so surely. The subconscious does not reason. It does not say, but where did the money come from? It does not say, that is unlikely. It does not say, that is too much. These are the arguments of the waking, conscious mind. The subconscious receives what you feel as true and then externalizes it. It builds the bridge of incidents that leads to it. And it does this without asking your permission, because you gave your permission the moment you accepted the feeling. So the entire question becomes, can you accept the feeling? Not can you force yourself, not can you pretend loudly, but can you enter a short scene and let it be real enough that your body responds? Because when the body responds, the subconscious has been touched. When the heart softens, when relief comes, when a quiet smile forms without effort, you have impressed the deeper self. Now there is another mistake people make here, and because they make it, they remain forever almost there. They imagine as spectators. They watch themselves from a distance, like watching a play. They see a figure that looks like them receiving money. They watch someone else congratulate them. They watch a scene as though it belongs to another life. But the imaginal act must be done from within. You must see through your own eyes. You must hear with your own ears. You must feel with your own hands. You must stand inside the end, not outside looking in. If the scene is a check, then feel it in your hand. If the scene is a statement, then see the numbers as though they are yours now. If the scene is a voice, then hear the tone of the voice as though it is spoken to you in this moment. Let it be intimate, not theatrical. Now do you see why I am speaking slowly? Because this is not something to be rushed. The mind must be allowed to soften into it. You are preparing yourself for sleep, and sleep is not an enemy of this work. It is the ally. The nearer you are to sleep, the easier the scene will take on the tones of reality. So let me give you a simple frame to carry with you. Do not strain to make it vivid. Instead, allow it to become vivid by becoming quiet. In the same way that a pond becomes clear when it is still, the imaginal act becomes clear when you stop stirring the mind with effort. So now, as you continue listening, perhaps already drifting a little deeper, I want you to consider the difference between these two inner attitudes. One says, I hope. The other says, I have. One says, I am trying. The other says, it is done. One is tense, the other is calm. The subconscious is impressed by calm acceptance far more than by frantic effort. Now here is how you will know you are thinking from wealth instead of wealth. When you think of wealth, you feel a distance. You feel a longing, you feel a gap between you and the desire. It feels like something you are reaching toward. When you think from wealth, you feel a settledness. You feel a quiet possession. Even if it is only for a moment, you feel as though you are already there. There is no reaching, because you have arrived. That is the feeling you are cultivating. And it does not have to be dramatic. It does not have to be dramatic. It does not need fireworks. In fact, the more natural it becomes, the more powerful it is. The subconscious accepts what feels natural as true. So we are aiming for naturalness, not excitement. Now, let me take you into the one short scene principle more deeply, because it is the foundation of the practice you will do nightly. Think of a ring on the finger. You do not need to imagine the years of courting, the choosing of the ring, the ceremony, the guests, the photographs. A single glance at the ring on your hand can contain the entire implication, I am married. In the same way, a single moment can contain the entire implication, I am wealthy. It is the implication that matters, not the length of the scene. So choose a scene that implies the end is done, and then repeat it gently, like rocking a cradle, not forcing it, not hurrying it. Let it loop softly until it carries you into sleep. That is the practice. Now, because you are listening with the intention of sleep, I will give you a scene that is quiet and soothing. I will not give you a scene that triggers frantic excitement or nervous energy, because that would defeat the purpose. Here is a simple scene, and you may adapt it later, but let me offer it to you now exactly as it is. You are sitting quietly at a table. The light is soft. In your hands is a single sheet of paper. It is an ordinary document, but you recognize it instantly as a statement of your financial position. You do not feel shock, you do not feel disbelief, you feel calm. Your eyes move across the page, and you see a figure that indicates abundance, more than enough, far beyond strain. And you feel a gentle wave of relief move through your chest, as though a long old weight has finally lifted. You are not counting pennies, you are not bracing, you are breathing easily. And you whisper, not to convince anyone, but because it is true. Thank you. Now do you see how quiet that is? It does not require a crowd. It does not require noise. It does not require drama. It is a private knowing. And that private knowing is exactly what the subconscious accepts as true. Now another scene, equally simple, equally short, and perhaps even more intimate. You are lying in bed, as you are now, and you feel a hand resting in yours, someone you love, someone whose voice brings you comfort, and you hear them say, in a tone of warmth and certainty, I'm so proud of you. We are completely secure now. And again, you do not leap into frantic excitement. You feel peace. You feel safety. You feel that quiet inner smile that comes when something is settled. And you whisper again, thank you. This too implies the end. This too contains the seed. Now you may be wondering, Neville, must I imagine 1 million exactly? Do not bind yourself with the number. The state is the cause. The number is the shadow. If you truly assume the millionaire state, if you accept wealth as your natural condition, then the outer world will produce the corresponding facts. It may come as the million itself, or as the equivalent in value, opportunity, ownership, and flow. The law is not limited by your present understanding. It will produce the end in the most natural way. Your job is not to dictate the channel. Your job is to occupy the state. So do not stare at the number with strain. Instead, take the feeling the number represents and live from that feeling until it becomes natural. Now let me speak to the heart, because the heart is where the feeling is born. What would it feel like if 1 month from now you could not fail financially? Not because you were always trying, but because life itself seemed to support you. What would it feel like if you could look at tomorrow without dread? What would it feel like if you could be generous without fear? What would it feel like if money were no longer a threat, no longer a question, no longer a constant weight? Let those questions be answered not with words, but with sensation. If you feel the shoulders drop as you consider it, that is the state entering you. If you feel the breath deepen, that is the state entering you. If you feel the mind grow quieter, that is the state entering you. Now I want you to understand something else that will help you, especially in the beginning. You do not have to hold the state perfectly all day. You will return to it again and again, like a person returning to a home they are learning to live in. Each return strengthens the new identity. Each return weakens the old. And at night, just before sleep, your return has special power. It is like planting at the richest hour of the day. So what you will do is this. You will choose your one short scene. You will enter it from within. You will feel the end as done. And you will let sleep take you while you are still inside the feeling that is living in the end at night. And then, during the day, you will remember the feeling not by strain, not by constant effort, but by a simple inward remembrance. It is done. Now I will give you the first gentle rehearsal, not the full induction yet, but a rehearsal, so the mind becomes familiar and the heart begins to accept. If you are awake, you may follow it. If you are drifting, let it wash over you. It will still be received. Imagine now, very softly, that you are holding that paper in your hands. Feel its texture. Feel the slight firmness of it between your fingers. Do not try to see every detail, just enough. Now your eyes move over it, and you see the figures that represent abundance. And instead of shock, you feel a calm certainty, as though you are looking at something inevitable. A quiet warmth spreads in the chest, the breath becomes easier, and you whisper inwardly, it is done. Then gently, as though speaking to life itself, you say, thank you, and you rest. You do not ask how. You do not demand proof. You simply rest in the feeling that it is already accomplished. Now let that fade for a moment, and imagine another gentle implication. You are at a small table, writing. You are not writing out of fear. You are not writing out of desperation. You are writing with ease. You are signing your name on something that represents wealth settled, wealth secured. Perhaps it is the payment of everything that once worried you. Perhaps it is an agreement, a purchase, a decision made from abundance, and again, the feeling is the same. Not frantic excitement, quiet confidence, steady peace. And you whisper, I am. Not I will be. I am. Now you may let it go again. Do you see what we are doing? We are not straining the mind. We are impressing the feeling, because the feeling is the seed. And when the seed is planted, the subconscious takes it and multiplies it, and the outer world must in time reflect it. So do not measure tonight. Do not demand signs. Do not force the picture. Let it be simple. Let it be short. Let it be real enough to soothe you. And remember, if you fall asleep in the middle of the scene, that is not failure. That is success. Because the last impression upon the subconscious is the one that is carried into creation. So later, when I guide you more deeply, I will bring you into the scene in a slower, softer way, and I will let it loop gently until you drift into sleep with the end feeling upon you like a garment. But for now, let this be enough. You have learned the distinction. You have tasted the beginning. Think from wealth, not of wealth. Choose one short scene, not a long story. Enter it from within and feel it as done. It is done. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now in the next portion, I will show you how to remove the hidden weight that keeps many from sustaining this state, the old story, the old memory, the old identity, and I will teach you the secret of revision, so that you do not merely step into wealth at night, but you free yourself from the inner past that has been repeating itself as lack. There is a secret that many overlook, and because they overlook it, they can imagine wealth for an hour and then undo it in a moment. They do not undo it with the outer world. They undo it within themselves, by returning again and again to an old feeling they call the past. Now listen to me softly, because what I am about to tell you is not meant to make you stare at your history with pain. It is meant to free you from it. The past is not a thing locked away behind you. The past is a feeling you carry in the present. And because it is a feeling you carry in the present, it is alive. And because it is alive, it can be changed. And because it can be changed, the harvest that keeps repeating itself can be changed as well. Most people imagine the past as fixed, like a stone. They say, it happened. It cannot be altered. And so they wear it like a heavy garment. They carry the embarrassment. They carry the regret. They carry the shame. They carry the old sting of being rejected, the old fear of not having enough, the old moment when money felt like a threat. And then, without realizing it, they keep planting that same seed day after day, simply by reliving it. For every time you remember a painful moment and feel it again, you are not merely recalling it. You are re-impressing it upon the subconscious. You are giving it new life in the present. And the subconscious, faithful, literal, obedient, receives it and reproduces the same pattern in new forms. This is why some people feel as though they cannot get ahead. Not because life is against them, but because an old feeling is still active within them, and it continues to command the world to mirror it. Now the good news is this: you are not condemned to carry the past. You may revise it. Revision is the art of changing the past in imagination, so that the old state no longer produces its harvest. It is not about denying that something happened. It is about changing what it means. It is about changing the feeling tone of the memory, which is the true cause of repetition. If the past lives as feeling, then change the feeling, and you change the past. And when the past is changed inwardly, the present and the future are forced to rearrange themselves around the new foundation. For your life is built upon what you accept to be true, and memory is one of the strongest ways you accept something as true. So I tell you, if you would become wealthy and remain wealthy, you must free yourself from the old money wound. The wound may not even be dramatic. It may be small, but it is persistent. It lives in the body as tension, in the breath as shallowness, in the mind as a quiet dread whenever money is mentioned. And because it lives there, it continues to reproduce. Now do not search your past harshly. This is not a trial. Simply notice the feeling that arises when you think of money. If you feel tightness, fear, embarrassment, resentment, fatigue, those feelings are not random. They are traces of old states, and the old states can be revised. Let me show you how. I will speak in pictures, in small stories, because stories are how the subconscious understands. And as you listen, awake or drifting, you will find that the mind begins to loosen its grip on the old story. That is a sign the revision is already working. Consider a simple scene, one that many have lived. A bill arrives. It lies on the table like an accusation. You open it, and the number seems too large. Perhaps in that moment you felt your stomach drop. Perhaps your chest tightened. Perhaps you thought, here we go again. Perhaps you felt ashamed, as though you had failed some invisible test of life. Now that moment may have happened once, or 100 times, but each time you felt it, you impressed upon the subconscious the state of being burdened. And the subconscious, being faithful, gave you more moments to feel burdened. Now imagine you take that scene into the quiet of the night, not to suffer it again, but to transform it. You close your eyes. You return to that table. You see the bill there. But this time, you change the end. You do not open it with fear. You open it with calm. You read it, and you feel nothing tighten. You feel ease. And then, in your imagination, you see a stamp across it. Simple, clear, undeniable. Paid in full. Not will be paid. Not someday. Paid in full. And as you see those words, you allow the body to respond, as though it were true. You allow the relief to wash through you. You allow the breath to deepen. You allow the shoulders to drop. You might even smile, not because you are forcing yourself to feel something, but because relief is natural when a burden is lifted. And you whisper, gently, almost as if you were speaking to your own being, thank you. That is revision. You have not merely imagined something pleasant, you have changed the feeling tone of the past. You have taken an old seed and replaced it with a new one, and the subconscious receives the new seed as instruction. Now you may think, but the bill in the outer world is still there. Yes, perhaps it is, but the inner state that produced the bill has been altered. And because the inner state is the cause, the outer world must rearrange itself to match the new instruction. You have changed what you are. Now let me give you another scene. For many have been wounded not by the bill itself, but by the feeling of rejection. The feeling that life says no. Perhaps you remember a time you sought an opportunity, work, a position, a chance, and you were turned away. You received a letter, or a word, or a look that said, not you. And perhaps you felt small. Perhaps you felt foolish for trying. Perhaps you told yourself, it never works for me. Perhaps you felt that sting settle into the bones as a quiet belief. I am not chosen. Now if that belief remains, it becomes the lens through which life is seen, and life, being a mirror, reflects it. You walk through the world expecting no, and so you meet it. But revision can dissolve it. So you take that scene, the rejection, and you revise it. You do not merely wish it had been different. You make it different in imagination, and you feel it as real. You see the letter again, but this time the words are changed. The tone is changed. The decision is changed. You read, approved. You read, accepted. You read, congratulations. And you feel in that moment the warmth that comes when the world says yes. You do not need to shout. You do not need to jump. Just let the quiet relief enter. Let the inner voice say, of course. Let it feel natural, as though approval is the ordinary way of your life. And again, softly, thank you. Now do you see what has happened? The old identity, I am not chosen, has been replaced with a new identity, I am accepted. And because identity is the command, the world must begin to mirror acceptance. People will not change because you argued with them. They will change because you changed your state. Doors will not open because you begged. They will open because you became the one to whom doors open. This is the power of revision. It is not merely comfort, it is creation. Let me give you a third scene. Because there is one wound that many carry quietly, and it is not always spoken of. It is the wound of anxiety, the constant inner trembling that says something is about to go wrong. Perhaps you remember a day when you checked your money, whatever form it took, and you felt fear. You did not even need to be in crisis. The fear had become habitual. The moment you thought of money, the body tightened, the mind raced, the breath shortened. And you walked through the day under a shadow of worry. Now, if you fall asleep in that feeling, you plant it again. The subconscious receives it, and tomorrow it finds you new reasons to worry, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it is faithful. It must outpicture what you impress. So you revise the anxiety itself. You return in imagination to that day. You see yourself reaching for the numbers, the accounts, the purse, whatever it was. But this time, you are different. You are calm, you are steady, you look, and you feel ease. You hear yourself say, I am always provided for. You feel the warmth of safety. You feel your breath deepen. You feel your body soften. And then you revise the day further. You walk through it with confidence. You encounter whatever you encountered, but you remain unshaken. You respond as one who is supported. You move as one who is secure. You fall asleep in that revised day, not as the anxious self, but as the secure self, and the subconscious receives that. It begins to build a world that matches it. Now these are examples, but the principle is always the same. The past lives as feeling. Change the feeling, and you change the harvest. Do you understand why this is so important for money? Because money is not merely currency. It is meaning. It is emotional meaning. For many, money became tied to fear, tied to shame, tied to conflict, tied to childhood moments, tied to the feeling of being unsafe. And as long as that meaning remains, the subconscious continues to produce experiences that justify it. But when you revise, you remove the poison from the root. You free the state. Then, when you assume the millionaire identity, it feels more believable. It feels more natural. It feels less like a fight and more like a return. Now I want you to notice how gentle revision can be. You do not need to revise your entire life in one night. You do not need to dig through every memory. You only need to revise what still carries charge. A memory with no emotional charge is dead. It does not create, but a memory that still tightens you, still stings you, still makes you feel small, that memory is alive. And whatever is alive can be changed. So how do you practice this? Especially at night, when you are listening and drifting. You do it the simplest way possible. You take one moment from the day, or from the past, that did not match the life you are choosing now, and you change it. You change it to what it ought to have been, and then you feel the new version as real. Not as a long explanation, but as a short scene, just as we do with living in the end. If you had a moment of fear today, revise it into a moment of calm. If you had a moment of lack today, revise it into a moment of provision. If you had a moment of rejection, revise it into acceptance. If you had a moment of shame, revise it into dignity. And then you fall asleep. You fall asleep not carrying the old story into the subconscious, but carrying the revised story, the new seed. This is how you stop reproducing the same life. Now let me tell you something that will help you, because some will say, but Neville, can it truly change what has been? It changes what is active. If the past were truly dead, it would have no effect. But you know it has effect, because you feel it. You know it has effect, because it influences your expectations, your reactions, your inner speech. It lives in you as a present state. And because it lives as a present state, it can be replaced. When you revise, you are not rewriting a newspaper. You are rewriting the state that the past established in you. And because the state is the cause, the world changes. You will find that people behave differently. You will find that opportunities appear where they once did not. You will find that the same circumstance no longer produces the same emotional reaction. You will feel lighter. You will feel freer. You will notice that what once triggered fear now passes without power. And you may not even be able to explain why. That is revision working. Now let me speak to you with the tenderness this deserves. Many carry money shame. They do not speak of it. They do not confess it publicly. But within they feel unworthy. They feel foolish. They feel that money belongs to others, not to them. They feel that if they had more, they might lose it, or ruin it, or be punished, or become someone they do not trust. These are not logical thoughts. They are feelings. They are states. And revision can cleanse them, because revision is a form of forgiveness. Not forgiveness from another, but forgiveness within yourself. It is the act of saying, that is not who I am now. That is not the meaning of money in my life. That is not the story I will continue to repeat. So if you have ever felt ashamed of your finances, revise that moment. See yourself being treated with respect. See yourself feeling dignity. See yourself calm and capable. Hear someone say, you handled that beautifully. Feel your own inner voice. Say, I am secure. And then let it be. Revision is the washing. It is the cleansing. Now there is something else. Revision does not only change the past, it changes you in the present. It changes what you are willing to accept. A person who revises becomes less reactive. They stop living as a victim of circumstances. They stop being thrown about by the day. They begin to feel inwardly, I am the author here. And that authorship is exactly what you need to sustain the millionaire state. Because wealth, to remain, requires a new identity. And the new identity must be protected from the old reflex of fear. So now we come to a transition. You have tasted the millionaire state. You have begun to enter the end at night. And now, through revision, you are removing the old seeds that would otherwise keep sprouting as lack. What remains is to protect the new state. For a seed planted at night must not be dug up by day. And the way most people dig it up is not with action, but with inner speech. They plant wealth before sleep, and then the next morning they rehearse poverty again. They look at a shadow and declare it truth. They speak, I can't, and I don't have, and it never works. And they cancel their own harvest. But you will not do that. You will learn to guard the stage gently. You will learn to keep your inner conversation loyal to the end. You will learn to return to the feeling whenever the old story tries to rise. And because this is meant to carry you into sleep, let me seal this part in a way that is soft and simple. If there is a memory that still stings, you may revise it now, lightly, without strain. You may let it change as you drift. You may see it ending differently. You may feel relief replacing shame. You may hear approval replacing rejection. You may feel security replacing fear. And you may whisper, softly, as though speaking to your own being, it is done. I am. Thank you. Now, and as you rest in that, we will move into the next portion, where I will show you how to protect the millionaire state in daylight through the mental diet, the inner speech that becomes your constant prayer, so that what you plant tonight grows undisturbed until it appears as fact. Now I must speak to you about the very thing that causes most people to fail, not because the law fails them, but because they abandon the end the moment life begins to move. Do not ask how. I know how natural the question feels. I know how the mind reaches for it, the way a hand reaches for a railing in the dark. You want certainty. And you think certainty comes from knowing the route. You think peace comes from seeing the plan. You think confidence comes from understanding the sequence. But the law does not work that way. The how is not given to the anxious mind, because the anxious mind would attempt to control the bridge, and in controlling it, it would destroy it. The bridge of incidents is built by a wisdom deeper than your reasoning. It is built by the subconscious, which is the faithful servant of your assumption. It takes the end you have accepted, and it arranges the means in a way that appears natural, often so natural, that if you are not watchful, you will dismiss it. This is why I repeat it again and again, not to scold you, but to save you from the one habit that uproots your seed. Do not ask how. To ask how is to confess you do not yet live in the end. It is to confess you are still standing outside the fulfilled state, peering in, wondering how you might enter. But living in the end is entering first and letting the world form itself afterward. Living in the end is taking your seat at the table before the senses present the meal. Living in the end is claiming the thing inwardly and allowing the outward rearrangement to unfold without your interference. If you persist in the end, the bridge will form. If you demand the route, you may step around the very bridge that was built for you. And I want you to understand why this happens. Because if you understand it, you will not panic tomorrow when life begins to shift. The bridge of incidents is the series of events, often ordinary, often surprising, sometimes even uncomfortable, that carries you from the state you were in to the state you have assumed. It is the natural unfolding of the law. It is not random, it is not coincidence, it is not luck. It is the law rearranging the world to match your inner decree. Now here is where people become frightened. They assume the end at night. They feel, perhaps for the first time, a quiet certainty. They fall asleep in the state of being provided for. And then in the days that follow, something happens that seems to contradict it. A delay, a bill, a door that closes, a plan that falls through, a conversation that feels uncertain. And immediately the old mind cries, "See, it is not working. You were foolish to believe. Return to what you know." And in that moment, many abandon the end. They drop the state. They return to fear. They dig up the seed. And then they say the law does not work. But the law was working. It was working the moment you assumed. It was working the moment you fell asleep in possession. It began to build the bridge. And the first steps of the bridge may not always look like the end. Sometimes the bridge begins with the removal of what cannot go with you. Sometimes the bridge begins with the breaking of an old pattern. Sometimes the bridge begins with the ending of a situation that kept you in the state of lack. And if you judge by appearances, you will call the bridge a failure. But if you remain loyal to the end, you will cross it, and you will discover it was the very path that led to fulfillment. So I tell you again, do not ask how. Do not demand a specific route. Do not say, it must come from this person, or it must come from this job, or it must come in this exact form. When you do that, you narrow the channels through which life may bring your assumption to pass. You do not know what doors are hidden just beyond the walls. You can see. You do not know what unseen arrangements are already in motion. You do not know what forgotten account, what old promise, what delayed opportunity, what chance meeting has already been stirred by the new state you have assumed. And because you do not know, the only wise posture is trust. Not blind trust in the world, but trust in the law. Trust in your own imaginal act. Trust in the fact that once impressed, the subconscious is already at work. Now let me give you stories, because stories carry the truth into the heart in a way that argument never can. And as you listen, let your mind relax. Let it stop grasping. Let it stop demanding. Let it simply feel the quiet certainty that the bridge is already forming. I recall a man who came to me burdened not only with lack, but with the feeling that life had passed him by. He wanted wealth, yes, but more than that, he wanted relief. He wanted to feel that he could breathe again. He wanted to feel that the future was not a threat. He had a position, but it was small. The pay was small. The pay was small. The hours were long. And he believed deeply that this was all life would ever offer him. He did not speak it aloud, but his inner speech confessed it nightly. I instructed him to do something that seemed to him unreasonable. I told him to fall asleep each night, feeling the reality of being prosperous, not hoping, not begging, but possessing. I told him to imagine a friend, congratulating him, and to feel it as though it were happening now. He did it, not perfectly, but faithfully. Night after night, he returned to the end. He did not ask how, he simply lived from it. After some weeks, something happened. The very position that had been his small security began to wobble. He was told that changes were coming. His hours were reduced. The same old fear rose up in him, like a dark wave. The mind cried, This is ruin, and he almost abandoned the end. But he remembered what I had told him. The bridge is not always comfortable in its first steps. He returned to the state. He refused to interpret the change as punishment. He refused to see it as failure. He held the end. Within a short time, a conversation took place with someone he would never have approached in his old state. And in that conversation, an opportunity appeared, an offer that fit his talents, a door that had never existed for him before. If the old position had remained unchanged, he would never have taken that step. He would never have met the person. He would never have crossed that threshold. The reduction of hours which seemed like loss was the first step of the bridge. And when he looked back, he saw that it was inevitable. It could not have happened any other way. Now another story. A woman once listened to these truths with the weariness of someone who had tried everything. She did not need luxury. She wanted dignity. She wanted freedom from the endless feeling of just barely. Each month arrived like a test, and each test seemed to say, "You will never rest." I told her, as I tell you, to take the end into sleep. I did not tell her to scheme. I did not tell her to scheme. I did not tell her to calculate. I did not tell her to chase. I told her to assume. Her scene was simple. She imagined herself holding a letter in her hands, and she saw in her imagination a sum of money that would change her life. Not a fantasy written in the air, but a paper in her hands. She felt the paper. She felt the relief. She heard her own voice whisper, "It is done." And she fell asleep in that feeling. Days passed, and nothing seemed to change. Then one afternoon, an unexpected message came. Someone she had known long ago reached out. A matter from years earlier, something she had forgotten, came forward. There was an account, neglected and unclaimed, that had matured. It was not dramatic. It was not announced by trumpets. It arrived like the most ordinary piece of correspondence. And yet, it carried the fulfillment. Had she demanded the route, had she insisted it must come through a specific labor or a certain person, she would have missed it. But because she lived in the end and did not ask how, life found a channel. Now I share these stories so you may recognize the nature of the bridge. It does not always come with bright signs. It often comes as a natural step, a conversation, a letter, a meeting, a sudden idea, an invitation, a closing door that moves you toward a better one. And here is the great secret. The bridge begins the moment you assume, not when you see evidence, not when you feel confident in the daylight. The bridge begins in the instant of inner acceptance. The subconscious receives the end and at once begins to select the means, arranging the world to deliver what you have claimed. This is why you must not panic at the early movements. A seed planted in the ground is invisible for a time, but it is not dead. It is alive. It is working. It is reorganizing itself in the darkness of the soil. And then suddenly one day, a green shoot breaks through the surface, and you call it growth, but it was growing all along. So it is with the bridge of incidents. You may not see it, but it is forming, and often you will not recognize the bridge until you have crossed it. You will look back and see the sequence, and you will marvel at how perfect it was. Now let me warn you of the one habit that ruins many, the habit of dictating the form. A person says, "I must become wealthy by this exact route." They say, "It must come from this one source." They say, "It must happen in this one way." And because they fix their attention on a single channel, they blind themselves to the 100 channels life would have used. They become like a man standing before a closed door, pounding it with his fists, while behind him a wide gate has opened, unnoticed. Do not do that. Be faithful to the end, not to the form. The end is the feeling of wealth, the state of being provided for, the identity of the one who has. The form is the way it appears. The subconscious will choose the form, because it sees the whole field of life, not just the narrow corridor your reasoning mind can imagine. So if you say it must come this way, you are not being precise, you are being fearful, you are trying to control, because you do not trust. And that lack of trust is itself a state. Instead, say inwardly, "This is mine now. Let it come in the perfect way. And then rest. Now let me tell you about another kind of bridge that confuses people. Sometimes the bridge begins with an ending. An ending of a job, an ending of a routine, an ending of a certain arrangement, and the mind calls it disaster. But the law may be rearranging the stage. It may be removing what cannot support the new state. It may be clearing space for what must come. I have known people who imagined themselves in a new home, and the first thing that happened was that they were asked to leave the old one. They panicked. They said, "It is failing." But within weeks, a new door opened and the home appeared, and they realized that leaving the old was the bridge. I have known people who assumed prosperity, and the first thing that happened was the collapse of an old business model that kept them small. They thought, "This is the end." But it was the beginning. It forced them into a new way, and that new way carried them to abundance. So do not fear endings. If you have assumed the end and an old thing falls away, do not interpret it as failure. Interpret it as movement. The world is rearranging itself. The bridge is forming. And here is the discipline. You must not step out of the end when the bridge looks strange. If you become frightened and return to the old state, you may delay the bridge. You may take another route around, but the law will still attempt to fulfill, because the end was impressed. Yet you will make it harder by wavering. You will confuse the soil by planting and uprooting. So I tell you, when strange steps appear, remain calm. When ordinary steps appear, remain calm. When nothing seems to happen, remain calm. Your calmness is not passivity. It is faith. Faith is not strain. Faith is rest. Faith is the quiet inner knowing that what you have accepted as true will become visible in its appointed hour. Now, because you are listening with the intention of sleep, I want this to land in you as comfort, not as pressure. You do not need to manage the bridge. You do not need to watch for signs with anxious eyes. You do not need to interpret every event as proof or disproof. You only need to remain loyal to the end. This is your only job. Loyalty to the end does not mean you never feel doubt. It means when doubt comes, you do not kneel before it. You let it pass, and you return to the state you have chosen. You return to the feeling of being provided for. You return to it is done. You return to I am. Loyalty to the end means you do not treat your imaginal act like a brief visit. You treat it like a home. You return to it nightly. You nourish it. You protect it. You refuse to contradict it. And you do this without strain. The same way you would protect a small flame from wind, not by fighting the wind, but by shielding the flame. Now let me give you one more image, because images settle the mind. Imagine you have written a letter and sealed it. You have placed it in the hands of a faithful messenger. The messenger does not require you to follow him down the road. He does not require you to worry at every step. If you trust him, you allow him to go. And in time, what you sent arrives. Your imaginal act is the letter. The subconscious is the messenger. And the bridge of incidents is the road by which the message arrives as fact. So once you have planted the seed, your worry is not helpful. Your worry is only a confession of distrust. Your checking is only digging up the soil. Your insistence on how is only turning back to the old belief that the outer world is cause. So tonight and tomorrow and every day as this month unfolds, do this one thing: keep returning to the end. Let the bridge form without your interference. And if something happens that seems like delay, bless it. If something happens that seems like an ending, bless it. If something happens that seems like a detour, bless it. Not because you are pretending it is pleasant, but because you understand that the law is moving and the law is faithful. Now let these words settle in you, like a slow tide. Do not ask how. The bridge is forming. Your only job is loyalty to the end. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now, and as you rest, I will soon speak to you about the mental diet, the inner conversation by which you protect the seed in daylight, so that what you plant tonight is not undone tomorrow by careless inner speech. Inner speech is the prayer that never stops. You may think you pray only when you fold your hands, or when you speak certain words, or when you turn your attention toward what you call the divine. But I tell you, you are praying all day long, because you are always speaking inwardly. You are always declaring something to yourself. You are always naming yourself. You are always joining some feeling to the sacred name, I am, whether you notice it or not. And the world, being your mirror, answers the content of that inner speech with perfect fidelity. This is why I have insisted from the beginning that you must not only plant the seed at night, but you must protect it in the daylight. For what you impress upon the subconscious before sleep is powerful. Yes, but if you rise the next morning and speak against it inwardly, you will undo what you planted. Not because the law is harsh, but because the law is faithful. It brings forth what you persist in feeling as true. So understand me with warmth, not with fear. This is not a rule to burden you. This is a kindness. This is a way of keeping your own work intact. You do not plant a seed and then trample the soil all day and wonder why it struggles to rise. You do not write a letter and then tear it up each morning. You plant, you protect, you let it grow. Most people do the opposite without realizing it. They lie down at night and have a moment of faith. They imagine abundance. They feel relief. They drift into sleep thinking, it is done. And then, in the daylight, they return to the old conversation. They hear themselves inwardly saying, I can't afford that. Money is hard. It never works out. I'm always behind. They speak these things casually, almost as though they are being honest, almost as though they are being practical. But what is practical about planting weeds and expecting roses? The subconscious does not distinguish between what you call realistic and what you call negative. It only hears what you accept as true. And if you accept lack as true in the daytime, it will keep producing lack even if you have a moment of faith at night. You will live in a mixture, and a mixture produces delay. Now, I do not say this to scold you. I say it as a father might speak to a child who has learned to walk, but keeps stumbling, because the room is cluttered. The child is not wrong. The room must be cleared. Your inner room must be cleared of careless speech, not by force, but by gentle discipline. When you say, I can't afford, you may believe you are merely describing a present condition. But inwardly, you are doing far more than describing. You are decreeing. You are fastening poverty to I am. You are instructing the subconscious to continue the pattern. You are declaring that lack is your identity. And then you wonder why the pattern returns. When you say money is hard, you are not commenting on the economy. You are giving your imagination a law that abundance must be difficult for you. The subconscious accepts the law and rearranges your world to prove you correct. It gives you delays. It gives you strain. It gives you complications. Not because life wishes to torment you, but because you have spoken the command. When you say, it never works out, you are not being wise. You are planting failure, and the soil brings forth after its kind. So what shall you do? You shall not panic. You shall not strain to control every thought. That would only create more tension. And tension is not the millionaire state. You shall do something simpler. You shall begin to treat inner speech as sacred. You shall begin to speak inwardly, as the one who already is. And if that feels unfamiliar at first, remember it only feels unfamiliar because you have rehearsed the old speech for years. You have practiced lack. You have practiced fear. You have practiced doubt. You became skilled at it without intending to. Now you will practice wealth. Now you will practice certainty. Now you will practice the inner confession that matches the end you have assumed. This is what I call the mental diet. Just as you would not feed your body on poison and expect strength, you cannot feed your mind on lack and expect abundance. The mind produces its harvest according to what you repeatedly entertain. And again, this is not a punishment, it is a freedom. Because if the harvest is determined by what you feed the mind, then you can change the harvest by changing the diet. Now you may ask, must I speak inwardly of wealth every moment? No, do not turn this into strain. You are not trying to force a river to flow by staring at it. You are simply redirecting it. when it runs toward the old channel. The old channel is habit. Habit is powerful, but habit is not destiny. So in the daylight, you will do two things. You will notice and you will return. You will notice the inner phrase that contradicts your end, and you will return to the state you have chosen. That is all. Notice and return. Now let me give you some gentle examples. Spoken in the same manner, I would speak to anyone learning a new way. If you catch yourself inwardly saying, "I can't afford," do not argue with it. Do not condemn yourself. Simply replace it with something calm and true of the end. You might say, "I am always provided for," or "I have more than enough," or "money comes to me in natural ways." Choose one phrase that feels steady, not theatrical, and let it become your new inner response. If you hear yourself saying, "This is taking too long," do not wrestle with time. Time is not the maker. State is the maker. Replace it with, "It is already done," or "The bridge is forming," or "I remain faithful." And then return to your breath. Return to the feeling of calm provision. If you hear yourself saying, "I never get ahead," do not accept it as truth. It is only an old echo. Replace it with, "I always rise," or "I am favored," or "Life supports me," and let that become the new instruction. Now do not speak these words as a charm. Speak them as the language of the state. The state is not built by perfect sentences. The state is built by a feeling of naturalness. So choose the words that bring you back to the feeling. And here is a subtle point that will help you greatly. You do not have to deny what your senses report. You only have to deny that the senses are the cause. A bill may be there. A balance may be there. A circumstance may be there. You do not need to pretend you cannot see it. But you must refuse to treat it as the authority. You must refuse to treat it as the prophecy. It is only the harvest of past states. It is yesterday's echo. So you may look at it and say inwardly, "This is old. The new is already planted." And then return to the end. This is how you protect the seed without strain. Now I promised you a simple way to return to the state in 30 seconds, because the day will present moments when the old reaction attempts to rise. Perhaps you will hear news that would once have frightened you. Perhaps you will receive a message that would once have tightened your chest. Perhaps you will face an ordinary expense that would once have pulled you into the old state. In that moment, you do not need a long ritual. You do not need a full session. You need a return. Here is the return. And it is simple. Stop, just for a breath. Not in panic. Just stop. Let the shoulders drop a little. Let the jaw soften. Take one slow breath and feel the exhale as a release. Then, inwardly, whisper one sentence that implies the end. Not many. One. It is done. Or, I am provided for. Or, I am wealthy now. Then, for a few seconds, feel what the sentence would mean if it were true. Do not try to see a long picture. Just feel the relief. Feel the calm. Feel the safety. Let the body taste it for a moment. Then go on with your day. That is the return. If you do this, you are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You are training yourself to remain in the state, and the more often you return, the more natural the state becomes. The less you return to fear, the weaker fear becomes. It is not fought, it is starved. Now you may say, "But Neville, what if I forget?" Then you will remember again. And the remembering is the practice. Do not demand perfection of yourself. Demand only faithfulness. Faithfulness is returning. A child learning to walk falls, and falls again, and falls again, and then one day the child runs. The falling is not failure, it is training. So if you find yourself slipping into the old inner speech, do not despair. Simply return. Each return strengthens the new identity, and the new identity is what creates the million. Because the million is only the shadow of the identity. Now let me speak of something that will protect you even more powerfully, the tone of your inner conversation about yourself. Many speak harshly inwardly. They call it discipline. They call it honesty. They call it realism. But harshness is not power. Harshness is bondage. A harsh inner voice keeps you in tension, and tension is the state of one who fears life. The millionaire state is not harsh. It is calm. It is sure. It is gentle. So if you would protect the seed, speak to yourself as you would speak to someone you love who is learning something new. Be firm with the direction, but gentle with the process. Do not say, I ruined it. That is another seed of failure. Instead say, I return. Do not say, I always mess up. Instead say, I am learning the new state. Do not say, it won't work for me. Instead say, it is working now. This is not flattery. It is instruction. Now there is another practice that belongs to the mental diet, and it is very simple. It is the practice of closing the day rightly. Even if you do nothing else, you can protect your seed by ensuring that the last feeling before sleep is not worry, not resentment, not lack, but fulfillment. That is why this entire teaching is meant to be heard while you sleep. For if you end the day well, you plant well. And if you plant well, the harvest is certain. Now, because we are moving toward a deeper sleep transmission soon, I want to place here a gentle invitation, because many who listen will drift further and further into sleep and may not be awake later to hear it. If these words have helped you, if you have felt even a small softening in your chest, even a small sense of possibility, then remain with this work. Return to it, make it your nightly practice. And if the place where you are hearing this allows it, you may choose to subscribe, so you may find these teachings again, and you may write a note below. Just a simple note telling me what you are assuming now. Not what you hope for someday, but what you are claiming as present truth. I am provided for. I am wealthy. It is done. Do it not to impress another, but to seal it for yourself. When you declare it, even in a small way, you strengthen the identity. You become the one who claims. Now let us prepare to move into the sleep transmission, the portion where I will slow the pace, soften the voice, and guide you more directly into the state akin to sleep. I will do it gently, not as a command, but as an invitation. You will not have to strive. You will not have to fight your mind. I will lead you into the feeling of the wish fulfilled and allow it to carry you down into rest. But before we do, I want you to hold one final thought. Not as pressure, but as comfort. Night planting is powerful. Daytime protection is simple. You do not need to win every argument with your mind. You only need to return. The bridge is forming. Your only job is loyalty to the end. So whenever you notice the old speech, let it be a signal, not of failure, but of opportunity. A chance to choose again. A chance to put on the garment. A chance to whisper, calmly, it is done. I am. Thank you. Now, and then continue quietly, as one who already is. In the next part, I will begin the descent. I will guide your body into stillness, your mind into softness, and your imagination into one simple scene of fulfillment. And if you fall asleep in the middle of it, that is not an interruption. That is the very aim. Because the last feeling you carry into sleep is the instruction the subconscious will obey. Now we soften. There is nothing to reach for, nothing to hold up, nothing to keep doing. The day is finished, and you do not have to carry it any farther. Let the body be where it is. Let the bed support you. Let the room be as it is. You do not need to change anything outside of you tonight. Just let the breath slow. Not by force, not by effort. Simply allow the next breath to be a little easier than the last. Let it be as though the body is sighing, as though something has finally decided it may rest. If you notice your shoulders are raised even slightly, let them soften, let them fall, even a little, as though you are laying down a weight you did not realize you were carrying. The jaw may loosen, the tongue may rest, the muscles around the eyes may soften. You do not have to watch your breathing. You do not have to do anything with it. Just let it grow quiet on its own, as though the breath is becoming a gentle tide. And as the breath becomes quiet, the mind becomes quiet. That is the natural order. When the body relaxes, the mind follows. If thoughts come, let them come and pass. Do not chase them. Do not follow them down their roads. Let them drift by like distant sounds in the street. They are not important now. They do not require your attention. Tonight you are not here to solve. You are here to assume. Let the shoulders sink again. Let the forehead smooth. Let the belly soften. If you feel any tightness in the chest, do not fight it. Simply let the exhale be a release. Each exhale can be a small letting go, as though you are emptying the body of the day. Now notice how the bed holds you. It does not ask you questions. It does not demand that you prove anything. It simply holds you. Let life hold you in the same way. You are drifting toward that borderland, that gentle interval between waking and sleep where the senses grow dim and the deeper self becomes receptive. And in that borderland, the seed is planted most easily. So you do not need to strain for vivid pictures. You do not need to create a great drama. All you need is to enter a simple feeling, an implication, a quiet end. That is all. If you are still awake, listen as though you are listening from a distance. If you are already drifting, let the words enter without effort. The subconscious is receiving even when the conscious mind is tired. In fact, it receives best then. Now the breath is slower, the eyelids are heavier, the room may begin to fade from importance, the body may feel warmer or heavier or simply less interested in moving. This is good. This is the state akin to sleep. You may notice the edges of things soften. You may notice you are less concerned with time. You may notice you are less concerned with the outer world. This is the doorway. Now let the room fade. You do not have to picture darkness. You do not have to imagine anything dramatic. Simply let the awareness of the room become less sharp, as though you were turning down the light on the world of the senses. Let the body be still. If you need to move, move, and then let it be still again. There is no struggle here. You are simply settling. And now, without effort, we enter the scene. Not suddenly, not sharply, gently. You do not have to make it happen. You allow it to happen. You are not watching a scene. You are stepping into an implication. You are not trying to become wealthy. You are resting as the one who already is. So let us begin very lightly. Imagine, in the simplest way, that you are holding a single sheet of paper. It is ordinary paper. It has weight. It has texture. You do not have to see every detail, just enough to feel it is there. Your hand holds it easily. There is no tension in your fingers. You are calm. You glance at the paper, and you recognize it as something that confirms your financial position, your security, your abundance. Not in a theatrical way, but in a matter-of-fact way, as though you have seen it before, as though it is natural. You see figures that represent wealth. And now, notice what matters most. Not the number, the feeling. A quiet relief moves through you. The kind of relief that comes when something long settled is finally confirmed. The kind of relief that loosens the chest. The kind of relief that makes the breath deeper without you trying. You might feel a gentle warmth behind the ribs. You might feel the shoulders soften again. You might feel the mind say, without any excitement, without any argument, of course. And then, softly, you whisper inwardly, thank you. Not as a plea, as a recognition. Thank you. Now you do not need to keep staring at the paper. You do not need to examine it. You have received the implication. The feeling has been touched. The seed has been planted. So let it fade slightly, as images do when you drift. And now, very gently, let another implication appear. You are in a quiet place. Perhaps you are seated at a small table. There is a calmness in the air. Someone speaks to you, someone whose voice carries warmth, someone you trust. You do not need to see their face clearly. The face is not important. The voice is important. The tone is important. The feeling is important. And you hear them say, simply, quietly, as though it is the most natural thing in the world, I'm so happy for you. You are completely secure now. Listen to the tone. It is not surprised. It is not doubtful. It is certain. It is warm. And as you hear it, you feel that quiet smile within, the smile that comes when life is settled. the smile that comes when you no longer have to brace. And again, softly, inwardly, you whisper, thank you. You do not need to repeat it. You do not need to force it. Just let the feeling wash through you. The feeling of being safe, the feeling of being provided for, the feeling of abundance that is natural. Now let the scene fade a little, the way it fades when you drift towards sleep. Do not hold it too tightly. A tight hand cannot receive. A relaxed hand receives easily. So let it be light. Now as you lie there, you may notice that sleep is nearer. The senses are dimmer. The body is heavier. The mind is quieter. This is precisely where we want to be. Now I will give you a single phrase, and I want you to let it drop into you, not like a command, but like a lullaby. It is done. Let it be spoken inwardly, as though it is already true. Not, it will be done. It is done. You may feel the body respond to those words, not because words have magic, but because the state behind them has power. It is done. And now, even more gently, I am, not I will be. I am. You do not need to attach anything to it right now. Just feel the bare awareness of being, the simple, quiet presence that says, I am, before it says anything else. That presence is calm. That presence is steady. That presence is the operant power. And now, very softly, thank you. Thank you. And now. All of this is meant to carry you down, not to lift you up into excitement. So let the mind become slower. Let the thoughts stretch out and thin. Let the body sink further into the bed. You may notice that the line between imagination and sensation becomes softer in this state. That is normal. That is the sign that the guard is relaxed. That is the sign you are approaching the chamber where the subconscious receives. Now we return lightly to the scene. Only lightly. You are holding that paper again. Or perhaps you are not holding paper at all now. Perhaps you are simply aware of a fact that you are wealthy. It is a quiet fact. It is not argued with. It is not proven. It is known. If you prefer the paper, let the paper be there. If you prefer the knowing, let the knowing be there. Either way, the feeling is the same. Relief, ease, security, naturalness. And as that feeling is present, you do not struggle to keep it. You simply rest in it, the way you rest in the feeling of your own name. You do not argue with your name. You do not strain to believe it. It is natural. So let wealth feel like that. Natural. Now the mind may try to pull you back toward the old habit, the habit of asking, but how will it happen? If it does, do not answer it. Do not debate it. Let that question pass like a leaf in a river, and return to the end. Return to the feeling. Return to the quiet relief. Return to it is done. Because the question how belongs to the old state, the state that stands outside the door and waits for permission. But you have already entered. You have already taken your seat. So you do not ask how. You do not bargain. You do not plead. You simply rest. Now notice the breath again. It is slower. And perhaps without you noticing, it has become the breath of one who is safe. This matters, because the body is part of the subconscious language. The body does not respond to philosophy. The body responds to state. So when the body relaxes in the assumption, you are impressing the subconscious more deeply than you ever could by repeating words. This is why this hour is so powerful, because you are not merely thinking, you are becoming. And becoming happens best when the body is quiet and the mind is soft. Now let the room fade even more. Let it be as though the world of the senses is moving further away, not violently, but naturally, like a boat drifting from shore. The shore can remain. You simply drift, and as you drift, you become more receptive. Now I will speak to you as though you are already half asleep, because many who listen will be, and if you are, this will not disturb you. It will help you. You are doing it now. You are entering the end. You are feeling security. You are letting the old fear fall away. You are letting the new identity settle in. You are not trying to become wealthy. You are resting as the wealthy one. And because you are resting in it, you are planting it. Now let me gently remind you of something. You do not need to see a million in your mind. You do not need to count it. You do not need to examine it. The subconscious is not impressed by arithmetic. It is impressed by feeling. If the feeling is abundance, the facts will follow. If the feeling is security, the channels will open. If the feeling is provision, the bridge will form. So take the feeling. Now let the feeling be simpler. Let it be like a sigh. A sigh that says, at last. A sigh that says, it's finished. A sigh that says, I am safe. And with that sigh, let the shoulders drop again, even more. Now if sleep is coming, let it come. If you drift in and out, let it happen. If the scene fades, let it fade. You are not losing anything, because the last feeling is what is planted. So what is the last feeling? Let it be relief. Let it be ease. Let it be gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. Now we touch the scene again, only as lightly as a feather touches water. You hear again that voice, warm and close. You are completely secure now, and you do not react with surprise. You react with naturalness, of course. Yes. And you whisper, thank you. Now the mind may wander. It may drift to other images. That is fine. We do not fight it. We simply guide it back, the way a mother guides a child back to bed, back to the end, back to the feeling, back to the calm, back to, it is done. So softly, it is done, and softly, I am, and softly, thank you, and softly, now I want you to feel something very important here. This is not an effort you must sustain. This is not a labor. This is not a strain. It is a surrender. It is the surrender of the old identity, the one who fears, the one who braces, the one who believes life must be struggled with. You are letting that one fall asleep, and you are letting the new one awaken within, the one who is provided for, the one who is secure, the one who has. And this is why the state akin to sleep is so powerful, because it allows you to slip into the new identity without the old mind fighting you. Now you may be so quiet now that you hardly notice the words. That is perfect. You do not need to follow every word. The deeper self is hearing. So let the words become slower. Let the spaces between them become longer. Let your awareness drift gently. You are drifting. The senses are dim. The body is heavy. And now in this dimness, the seed is accepted. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now, and as you continue, we will allow the scene to deepen, but never with effort, only with ease, so that sleep becomes the carrier of the assumption, and the subconscious receives the end as your instruction. Let everything be easy now. If you are still awake, you do not need to hold yourself awake. And if you are drifting, you do not need to pull yourself back. You may come and go as sleep does. This is the very rhythm in which the deeper mind receives. We will stay with the same truth again and again, like a lullaby. The same end, spoken in different ways. So it enters gently and remains without strain. Nothing here is meant to excite you. It is meant to soothe you into certainty, to settle you into the feeling of being provided for, to let wealth become natural within you. And as it becomes natural within, life begins to arrange itself without your anxious help. You do not need to demand the route. You do not need to hold the details. You only need to carry the end as a quiet mood. And let that mood be your home. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now, imagine, very softly, an envelope in your hand. It is an ordinary envelope, the sort you might receive in the course of life, but there is nothing ordinary about what it implies. You do not feel shock. You do not feel disbelief. You feel calm. You feel as though this is simply the way of your world. Now you slide a finger beneath the flap and open it with ease. The paper inside has weight. It has texture. You draw it out slowly, not because you are dramatic, but because you are savoring the quiet relief. You see a notice of funds, a statement of settlement, a confirmation of what you already accepted inwardly. The exact form does not matter. The implication matters. And the implication is this: you are provided for. You are secure. The old worry has no place here. You breathe more easily as you look. and a quiet warmth spreads through the chest, the warmth of safety. You do not need to count anything. You do not need to calculate. You only feel the relief of knowing. And you whisper, not as a plea, but as a recognition. Thank you. It is done. Now let that soften. Let it fade slightly, the way images soften when sleep is near. Do not hold it tightly. A tight hand cannot receive. A relaxed hand receives. And now imagine a bill, an old sort of bill, a notice, a demand, something that once would have tightened your body. See it lying on a table. But tonight, it does not frighten you. Tonight, it is finished. You pick it up, and across it you see words stamped clearly, decisively, without question. Paid in full. Paid in full. Not tomorrow, not later, not someday. Paid in full. And as you see those words, you feel something deep release. The stomach unclenches. The shoulders drop. The breath becomes slow and full. You do not need to explain it to anyone. You do not need to justify it. You only rest in the feeling that the burden is lifted, and again, softly. Thank you. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now imagine your hand holding a receipt, a simple piece of paper, and on it is the same confirmation. Paid, finished, settled. The ink is dry. The matter is closed. Your life is not a life of scrambling. It is a life of provision. You feel the quiet dignity of being the one who can settle things easily. The one who does not panic. The one who does not brace. The one who is supported. You might feel a small smile, not forced, not performed, just natural. And you whisper, it is done. Now the mind may wander. If it does, let it wander. It is not an enemy. We do not fight the mind. We guide it back, gently, the way a mother guides a child back to bed, back to the end, back to the feeling, back to the quiet relief. So now, again, imagine an account book, a ledger, something solid and ordinary, numbers written plainly, without drama. You turn a page. You see the figures that confirm abundance. And the most important thing is not the figure itself. The most important thing is the way your body responds. It responds with calm, with certainty, with a sense of course, this is natural for me. This is who I am. And because it feels natural, it is accepted. You do not argue with what is natural. You do not strain to believe it. It simply is. So you rest in that. And again, softly, thank you. It is done. Now imagine yourself walking through your day with the ease of one who has more than enough. There is no panic in your steps. There is no bracing in your chest. There is no secret fear behind your smile. You are not trying to appear wealthy. You are wealthy in consciousness, and the outer world will catch up in its own appointed hour. For now, you simply feel the end. You simply feel provision. You simply feel security. Now let the images change, but let the feeling remain the same. Perhaps you see yourself sitting quietly with a single sheet of paper before you. It may be a statement of holdings, an account, a confirmation of ownership, something that implies stability, not a moment of luck. You look at it with calm eyes, and you feel a long old weight lift, as if you have finally been released from a burden you carried too long. Your breath deepens, your body softens, your mind grows quiet, and you whisper, thank you. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now imagine a simple conversation. A voice speaks to you, warm, familiar, close, not loud, not theatrical, just real. I'm so happy for you, the voice says. You're completely secure now, and you receive those words the way you receive something you already knew, inwardly. There is no surprise. There is recognition. There is that quiet inner nod. Yes, of course, it is done. And with that recognition comes gratitude, not performed gratitude, not forced gratitude, but the natural fragrance of possession. Thank you, you whisper. Now you may let the voice fade, the way voices fade, as you drift. The feeling remains. The feeling is the seed. Now again, you hear it, in another form, another tone, the same implication. You don't have to worry anymore. And as you hear it, you feel the body respond. The shoulders drop again, the jaw softens, the breath becomes slow, the heart feels safer. You don't have to worry anymore. And you whisper, "It is done." Now imagine you are writing a check. Not with fear, not with hesitation, not with the secret thought, "Will this empty me?" but with ease. The pen moves smoothly. The amount does not frighten you, because you are not living from scarcity. You are living from abundance. And the act of writing is not a sacrifice. It is natural. You sign your name without tightness. You feel a quiet dignity in the act, the dignity of one who can meet obligations easily, who can give easily, who can move through life without panic. And you whisper, "Thank you. It is done. I am. Thank you." Now, if sleep is near, let it be near. You do not have to hold these images. You do not have to keep them sharp. In fact, the softness is your friend. The softness is the doorway. So let the scene become simpler. Let it become not a picture, but a mood of relief, a mood of safety, a mood of "I am provided for." Now, a small variation. You are holding a letter in your hands, and it contains one simple sentence that changes everything. It says you have been awarded, granted, paid, settled. Again, the form does not matter. The implication matters. And the implication is, abundance has become your normal condition. You feel that normalness. You feel the quiet ease of it. It is not a dream anymore. It is not a wish. It is simply what is true. And because it is true inwardly, it must become true outwardly. You whisper, "It is done." Now a soft pause. Now again, "I am." Let those words be the anchor. I am secure. I am wealthy. I am provided for. Do not force the phrases. Let them come gently, like a slow river. I am. Now notice something. In this state, you do not ask how. You do not bargain with life. You do not demand the route. You do not scan the horizon with anxious eyes. You rest. Rest is the sign of faith. Rest is the sign that the end has been accepted. So allow yourself to rest. Allow the body to be heavy. Allow the mind to be quiet. Allow the feeling to be enough. Now, another variation, very simple. You see a small stamp on a page, approved, approved, and with that word comes a release, because many have been living with the feeling of denial, denied by life, denied by chance, denied by circumstance. But tonight, the state is different. Tonight, you are the one to whom life says yes, approved, and you do not jump, you do not gasp, you simply feel the calm certainty of acceptance. Of course, this is natural for me, this is who I am. And you whisper, "Thank you, it is done." Now another variation. You are standing in a quiet place, and you have keys in your hand. Keys represent ownership, they represent possession, they represent a possession, they represent a settled life. You feel the cool metal, you hear the faint sound as they touch, and you feel the quiet certainty of having arrived, not striving to arrive, arrived. It may be the key to a home, the key to a safe place, the key to a new life. Again, the form is not the point. The point is the end state, security. And you feel it, you breathe it, you let it become your normal feeling, and you whisper, "It is done." Now let that fade. Now, another variation, even softer. A friend takes your hand and squeezes it gently. "I knew it would happen for you," they say. And you hear the tone, not surprise, not doubt, but certainty. "I knew it would happen for you." And as you hear it, you realize something. You have stepped out of the old identity, the one who feared, the one who doubted, the one who always struggled. You are now the one for whom it happens, not by luck, by law. And you whisper, "Thank you. It is done. I am. Thank you." Now let us return again to paid in full, because the subconscious loves the simple, decisive implication. Paid in full, say it inwardly, softly. Paid in full, and feel the relief as though the burden is already lifted. Paid in full, and feel the body soften. Paid in full, and feel the mind become quiet. Now, do not demand excitement. Excitement is not necessary. The subconscious is impressed by what feels natural. So let the relief be natural. Let the calm be natural. Let the gratitude be natural. Now, a gentle instruction to the deeper mind. This is my state now. This is my home now. This is natural for me. This is who I am. Say it inwardly, without strain. This is natural for me. This is who I am. And let those words carry the feeling deeper. If the mind says, but what about the facts? Let that question pass. The facts are yesterday's echo. The state is today's voice. The echo must change, because the voice has changed. So you do not fear the facts. You simply rest in the state. It is done. Now, another variation. You are sitting quietly, and you are looking at a small notice, a confirmation of ownership, a dividend, a matured investment, a settlement, a payment, something that arrives by ordinary means, yet carries extraordinary meaning. You do not feel shocked. You feel calm, because you already accepted this inwardly, and the outer world is simply catching up. You whisper, of course, and then thank you. It is done. Now another variation. You see yourself giving, not giving with fear, not giving with anxiety, but giving with ease. Perhaps you are helping a loved one. Perhaps you are giving a gift. Perhaps you are paying for something without a second thought. The act itself is simple, but the implication is profound. Abundance is your normal condition. You feel the quiet joy of being able to bless without fear, and you realize, without words, that this is what wealth truly is. And you whisper, thank you. Now a soft pause. Now again, I am. I am. Let that be enough. I am. Now, as you drift, we continue the lullaby. The same truth, different imagery, the same end. It is done. You may not remember these words in the morning. That is not important. The subconscious remembers. The subconscious receives. The subconscious builds the bridge. You may fall asleep. That is perfect. Sleep is the carrier. Sleep is the messenger. Sleep is the royal road into the deeper self. So let the eyes be heavy. Let the breath be slow. Let the shoulders be soft. And let the feeling of being provided for be the last garment you wear into the night. Now another gentle repetition. Like a blessing. You are wealthy. Not in hope, in consciousness. You are secure. Not by permission of the world. By assumption. You are provided for. Not by pleading. By being. And because you are being it now, the world must mirror it. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now. Let us seal identity even more deeply, because identity is the real ticket, the true cause. This is natural for me. This is who I am. Wealth is natural for me. Provision is natural for me. Security is natural for me. I do not fight life. Life supports me. I do not chase. I receive. I do not beg. I assume. This is natural for me. This is who I am. Now, if that feels too many words, let it become simpler. This is natural for me. This is who I am. And let the body respond. A small release in the chest. A quiet sigh. A softness in the belly. A slower breath. That bodily response is the subconscious accepting. Now another variation. Very quiet. You hear yourself say, I am so grateful, and you mean it. Not as a technique, as a fact. You are grateful because it is done. You are grateful because you are provided for. You are grateful because the state has been accepted. And gratitude is the perfume of fulfillment. So let gratitude be gentle. Let it be quiet. Let it be like a warm light in the chest. Thank you. Thank you. Now imagine again the stamp across the page. Paid in full. And with those words, the old anxiety dissolves. The old fear dissolves. The old tightness dissolves. You are not the one who struggles now. You are the one who has. This is natural for you. This is who you are. Now another variation. A simple phrase spoken to you in the dark, like a blessing. It worked out perfectly. And you feel the truth of it. It worked out perfectly. And the mind does not argue, because the mind is quiet now. And the subconscious is open. It worked out perfectly. And you whisper, thank you. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now. Let the words slow further. Let them be fewer. Let them become almost like a heartbeat. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now it is done. I am. Thank you. Now if sleep is taking you, let it take you. If you drift and return, let it happen. Each time you return, the feeling is there, waiting, like a home. And the home is the state. The millionaire state is not strain. It is calm. It is naturalness. It is the quiet knowing of being provided for. This is the state you are wearing now. So rest in it. Rest in it as you drift. Rest in it as you sleep. Rest in it as the subconscious receives and builds. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now. And now, with even softer words, seal it once more. This is natural for me. This is who I am. This is natural for me. This is who I am. It is done. I am. Thank you. Now.